I don't know if you know, Ethan, but I used to write the training manuals for Vectorworks in America. I used to write 4 of their training manuals. And I was talking to someone about them the other day because I'm thinking about remaking them. And they said to me, no, there's no point writing manuals these days. People just want to learn from videos. And it got me thinking. We tend to give a lot of videos away as part of our course. But when I went to university, I bought books, hard copy books to learn from. And there are books that we sometimes recommend to our students, but I came across one the other day called the Mitchell's Construction Series, and I was having a look through it, and I was staggered to find that it actually had nearly everything that your students need for their construction paper: site administration, site organizing, Gantt charts, the whole lot. So I'm curious, do you think it's still worthwhile to recommend students buy those expensive textbooks for your course?
It depends, isn't it? Because nowadays people go to the library. My students, they don't buy. I think they had the younger generations doesn't have the habit of buying books already. So that's a bit tricky now. And okay, they're grown up by watching YouTube, so their mind is still in YouTube. A few months back, I recommend students to go and read the book at the library because I told them the question is all the details you can learn, but it was the house building guides by Brains, I think. So I showed them, okay, all the details are there, and go and
Oh,
read
yeah.
it. They went there and they study it, and they because they have no idea what the studs, loggings, everything. I show them in outside world, but showing those things in outside world is one thing, but they still need to learn how to draw it. Okay, so they saw it in the real life, and they need to start drawings, and at least they see how other people drew the details. So that's one thing. YouTube videos, they don't show draw. They show you how to draw it, but very rarely you can see the finished drawing, finished works. For architectural detailings, it helps if there are finished detailings in front of the students, or not just the students, even the professionals. They, like us, we study how other people do details, right? So we study how there are other people's details, like for example, like Norman Foster details. For example, was it? I forgot his name. Anyway, so yeah, we study others famous architects how they do details. I.M. Pei, how he did for the Louvre. So that's things, yeah. So on the YouTube video, you won't see it. So yes, we can recommend details in books to the students. I doubt they might not buy, but yeah, our libraries need to support them. So I think that would be the first step. Maybe if they like it, and they will start buying books.
I think we should make them required textbooks so they have to buy them. And the reason for that, I know they're a lot of money, but when I went to university, we had a lot of books that we had to buy, and we just had to buy them. One of them I've lost, and I wish I hadn't lost it because now I want it. I want to finish reading it. But I've got books here that I bought when I was at university, and I've still got those books. They're still relevant if you go back and read it, because when we design buildings, some things don't change. Keeping water out is still one of those. There's the four Ds and the 5 physics principles. We've still got to comply with those things. But I like your idea of looking at other people's details and how they did them. The Architects Journal in England used to produce on a regular basis architects' details. So there would be maybe 30 or 40 different architects. They'd pick one building and they'd show some details from that building. It's really handy to be able to look through somebody else's details and see how they put stuff together, but also to see what line weights they use, what text they use, what kind of descriptions they put on them. And I just don't think that if you tell the student they can go to the library and learn from that book, first of all, you don't have a whole class set of those books. So that can be a challenge because they can only look one person at a time. If they buy the book, they'll treat the book more carefully. They'll look after it. And what they will tend to do, if it's something good like Mitchell's Construction Series, that book will last them for years. And they'll be able to write in the margins. I often get my pencil and I handwrite comments in the margin to help me understand what's going on in the book. Those sort of things you can't do in a library book. You shouldn't. But if it's your own book, some people still don't like it, but it's your own book, so it's not so bad. So to me, there's real reasons why you should buy that book. But I started thinking about all the books I've got. I've got books on architectural drafting and design, architectural working drawings. I've got a couple of Mitchell's construction I've got my father's old joinery book. I've got that lovely yellow book. What's it called? The Studio Craft of Techniques for Architects. And that's a great book on how to draw things, how to dimension things, all that kind of stuff. Because a lot of what we have to learn or what we have to teach is about communication. And these books allow the student to work through it. I do think that they should buy, because then they'll look after the book and they'll have that book for a long time. I've got books that I bought in 1980 and they're still right behind me on my shelves. And I've looked after them, so they're still in good condition. That I remember when we at university, it seemed like we were spending such a lot of money on textbooks. And I kept them. I kept all my textbooks, except for that one that I've lost and I can never remember what it's called. But yeah, so I just started thinking, number one, I've been told that people don't read, they only look at videos. But I just don't think you can learn construction detailing through videos.
Yeah, that's what I mentioned. You can videos only shows how they draw. You won't see the finished products. And even if they show the finished products, it's only a few seconds. Unlike the paper, you can see, oh, that's the finished product, how
Hmm.
the line weight is, how they do legends, because I had to check so many students how they draw. For example, like the arrowhead is not touching the beam and say that this is beam, but the arrowhead is, that's not following architectural drawing standards. So those kind of details, minor details, I need to say, no, this is not following how, this is not how the architectural drawing is supposed to be. And sometimes they, instead of pointing the material, they are pointing the other way to the text. So that kind of things I have seen,
Or
because the reason is they have never seen.
they have wavy lines that cross over each other, and you
Yeah.
can't follow it. It's just poor organizing.
So that's, and also the text, because I grew up looking drawings, Francis D.K. Ching's drawings. It's very inspiring, his text, how he organized. It's when I draw detailings and when I put legends, I always go back and look Francis D.K. Ching's drawings. Because if you keep on looking at video, you won't get inspirations. Oh, but Francis D.K. Ching also drew on YouTube, not many video anyway. So yeah, I agree with you. The students should buy. That's good. Good point. Yeah.
One of the things we used to make our students buy was that brand's home building guide. And the other one we used to make them buy was the plumbing and drainage guide. Those two they're going to use forever. But the other question I've got is that the house building guide focuses on what I really think is old fashioned domestic construction, single story construction. And it doesn't really cover what's being built today, which is like timber frame, 3 stories high. It doesn't cover things like tilt-up slabs or precast or commercial buildings or heavy timber. I went and saw one recently with heavy timber construction. So it doesn't cover a lot of that stuff. And so I'm wondering whether a book like Mitchell's construction series, written in England, would still have use in New Zealand. To me, the challenge is that it uses materials we don't use a lot of, handmade bricks, voussoirs. But there must be a lot of things that are interchangeable. You've worked overseas. You know that in Singapore, there's a lot of materials that we use interchangeably, precast
Yeah.
concrete,
Yes.
reinforcing, insulation, that kind of thing. So I'm curious whether you've got some thoughts about taking a book from overseas, like taking an American book and using it as part of our textbook or part of your knowledge, or maybe using the Mitchell's design series and trying to see whether that applies to New Zealand.
Yeah, you can use it because that's engineering special design drawings. And because when sometimes Kiwis are very think too much locally, instead of
Parochial.
3604 and something like that. But you can't build everything with NZS 3604 because if you started building commercial construction buildings, you are using advanced construction technique, which not mentions never to be found in NZS 3604, right? So Brent's house building guide is also based on 3604 as well, what you can look at. And also, what about advanced construction techniques? So maybe I think a few years back, there was a video showing a building built in China, which is how many stories? 15-story buildings was assembled at the site within 2 days. So that kind of advanced construction techniques, you need to learn from foreign countries, how they details, how they assemble, what makes them, how they manage the site. from the factory to the construction site and how many tower cranes we need to use. That's why we need to look how other people doing, how other countries are making 500 meters. So that's very important. Otherwise, if we don't learn from other people and we think like we are great, and then we will left out because the world is moving and changing and challenging each other. So yeah, we need to
Well,
learn
I was
that way.
having a look through some of these books, particularly this one from England, and I've heard people say it doesn't relate to New Zealand conditions. And yet I flick through and I find something like how to detail precast concrete stairs. If we do a commercial building, that's exactly what we do. Precast
Yes, we
concrete
do.
stairs, or because casting in situ is so difficult. So the idea that this book isn't relevant, I think is wrong. It's got a lot of details in it that we could use. Okay, so not everything is correct. Not everything is the way we would do it. But for example, this one here's got all the reinforcing that would go into a stair, into a precast stair. So you could look at this and say, oh, I can see how to do that. It's got where the bars are. It's got an idea of the size of the bars. It's in metric, so we could use it again. So to me, there's a real need, particularly the way the courses are going at the moment, the way that we're building medium density buildings. We need to think a little bit more about that. Rentals are becoming more important, so we need to think about the longevity of the buildings and the abilities to stand up to more abuse. So we're going to start using more concrete, maybe more steel. We need to look at commercial construction. And as I was flicking through this Mitchell's book, it shows you how to weld. It talks about welding, how to weld, how steel is joined together. So to me, we should have been telling our students to buy these books. I think they're probably over $100 each. So there's a couple $100 there. You spread that across your lifetime. And
Yeah.
we used to say to our students, allow $500 for materials and textbooks. You haven't even used up half of it with those two books, but those two books will be there for ages. And I was thinking about that. It's got truss, what trusses are, how trusses are designed, how the loads on trusses are. We got rupture, we got structure, how beams work. I mean, it's actually got everything. Really, it's got everything our course needs. I'm slightly disappointed I didn't see that until recently.
Yeah, thank you for highlighting. So I think I still have time to tell the students go and read that.
It's a bit late now. Sorry. But what about our listeners? It's not too late for our listeners to go and get these books and to
Yes.
understand what we're talking about.
So what books do you recommend? What is number one book
I
you want
think
to
that
recommend?
Mitchell's book would be a number one book for me because it covers so much. This is an older version of it. Now, there are loads of different copies of Mitchell's. This is by Jack Stout Foster. My friend Steve Skaysbrook, we interviewed Steve. He's
Yes.
rewriting these at the moment. Let me see, what one's this one? This is dated 1973. It's tempting to look at this and say it's no use. A lot of the stuff I looked through here is still really useful. Structure, production of buildings, the site organization. When you think of your construction diploma, if you had a book that showed how things are put together, how sites are organized, how to learn all that stuff, it's all here in the one book. So to me, that would be one to get. The house building guide in New Zealand is from Brands, is a great one to get started with for your students. So to me, that would be the first book to get, and maybe for the second year, get that Mitchell's book because it goes into the commercial detailing. And then by then, hopefully the students will understand a lot more about construction. So they'll pick a lot more out of that book rather than if you gave it to them from day one, they'd probably read the introduction to the book and then leave the course.
Thank you. Thanks for highlighting.
Don't forget to subscribe to us on Spotify. Thanks for listening.